it is our pleasure to welcome in Dan Orlovsky, who you see on ESPN all day, basically. You tune in your television to get up, there he is. First Take, there he is. NFL Live, there he is. Doing a game, there he is. And he also has 4 kids, by the way. So, Dan, my first question for you is, on the England Guest Hotline is, how much time do you have to sleep?
Well, good to be with you guys. I don't sleep much. I never really have, though. I'm one of those people who doesn't need a ton of sleep. I got lucky with that one. I had a father who taught me get up early before everybody else. That was an advantage. So I feel like I haven't slept since about the age of 13. And then I was a pretty bad athlete, so I had to wake up and study tape to try to make it in the NFL. And then about 14 years ago, I had triplets. So, I feel like for about the last 30 years, I haven't slept much, which bodes well for me and the job I'm in now. And I love doing it. I really do.
And I'm sure you don't want to, sing your own praises. But when you hear on Monday Night Football, the guys talking about how you're the hardest working guy in the media, Aikman was talking about that. How much do you appreciate a comment like that, Dan?
Yeah, I can't put it into words. My wife gets mad at me because I'm not somebody who, likes bask and stuff like that, or I don't really get starstruck in many ways. But, I was a teenager in the 90s, and obviously the Cowboys and Aikman were about as good as anybody. Even for a kid playing quarterback, Aikman was one of those guys. And so if you had told, in 1995, 12-year-old me that Troy Aikman would ever say my name, let alone know who I was, let alone say something like that, I would have never obviously believed it. And so that was a moment that I took a couple minutes to take in and truly appreciate, because for him to say that is one of the cooler things that I feel has happened to me in my life, and I don't take it for granted, and it was really special.
Yeah, which means you're doing great work, which means that all the hard work is paying off. All right, Dan, so you watch as much film as anybody. When you see film of Caleb Williams year 2, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm seeing improvement, and I think that's the encouraging thing. Caleb came out of school, this unbelievably talented player that was dynamic and explosive and a rocket ship, and that's one of the reasons why he gets drafted as early as he does. And then that first season, there's roller coaster highs and lows, and so, but there was traits and things that were present in college and in that first year in the NFL that you just sit there and go, and hey, he's going to have to get rid of this stuff, and he's going to have to play and learn to play this way, or the talent really won't matter, truly. And I think, obviously the conversation has been around, can he play in structure? Can he play with the rhythm and the timing of the offense? Can he get his feet in the right position at the right time with the proper pass concept? Will he, get to a third progression instead of running through his legs on a constant basis or backtracking? And I think, there was, a rocket ship start to week 1, and then it sputtered, and you saw a lot of the habits of the past that gave you concern. And then week 2, just a little bit better. And then week 3, just a little bit better. And my thing with everybody this week in regards to the week 3 performance against the Cowboys is, I think both things could be true. Yes, the Cowboys defense is bad, and they were bad. But did you do what you were supposed to do on that play with the football when you're supposed to do it in regards to Caleb? And he did a lot. And I think you have to be very encouraged by that, because that's just another step in the, all right, he's starting to understand it, he's starting to get it, and those are good signs.
Dan, can you imagine here in Chicago that if Caleb wouldn't have done those things against the Cowboys, and if the Bears would have laid an egg against the Cowboys, the panic that would be, and that's why, when you say something like that, we're like, yeah, that's cool. Do what you did against the Cowboys, because we torch you if you did not.
Yeah, and it's also, when the defense does something wrong or reacts to a certain play the wrong way and gives you an opportunity, do you take advantage of it? Do you hurt the defense when they present the opportunity to hurt them, and then do you not hurt yourself? The fact that he comes out of that game without a sack, and that's the first time since 2003, that for matters. I'm not giving him the MVP, but I do think, and I keep saying this is coming from somebody who was skeptical of him and Ben together right away, and who was, a person who said, I would take Jaden Daniels number one. So it's not like I'm, backing a guy that I have a bias with or whatnot. And so, but I have to do my job. I look at really week 2 to week 3, and I look at the improvement and the development and the things that you want to see him improve and develop in. And that's why I sit there and go, you have to be really encouraged by the things that you're seeing.
And do you feel like that your words were taken out of context by some at the beginning of the year, before the year was actually in training camp, when you said something to the effect of, Caleb won't master the offense for a couple of years? But I knew what you were going for. You're talking about the mastery of the offense, not the improvement week to week from the offense, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my words often get taken out of context. It's part of our world. But, yes, it was the understanding of it is going to take probably 2 years till Caleb can just break the huddle. And, he doesn't even have to hear 50% of the play call. He starts to hear something, Coach, I got it, we're good. And he can get them in and out of protections and plays and certain route concepts. And he'll get to a point where, and hopefully, there's really nothing the defense can give him that he's not ready for. And that's the mastery of it. You're watching it kind of with Jared Goff in Detroit. Is like, Jared knows everything about that offense right now. And so that's why they're always in good stuff. It's not that he's not going to have moments of good performance like we're seeing. And he's going to have a moment of struggle here soon, I'm sure. But, yeah, just really totally gauge everything that, as parts of this offense, it'll probably take him 2 seasons on top of getting rid of all the bad habits that he has as part of his past.
Yeah, Dan, I thought, aside from all of his, the statistics, and he's named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week and some of the magnificent throws, I thought the control he had of the offense and the way he carried himself and getting out of the huddle on time and all of the operational stuff was as clean as we have ever seen. That, to me, was the most encouraging thing. So using that kind of as the backdrop, Jared Goff's a different quarterback than Caleb Williams. When you watch the tape, are you seeing Ben Johnson do different things in his game planning and his play calling to highlight the different skill set that Caleb has?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there hasn't been anything right now. I mean, we've seen some of the quarterback run stuff. Yeah. But that hasn't been a massive part. I think that, I like the fact that they're putting him under center a fair amount. I don't think that there's anything that has stood out on tape. I've been like, yeah, he wouldn't have done that with Jared. He couldn't have done that with him. And so, but I think that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign that he could sit there and go, Ben Johnson, I've watched Jared run this 300 times, and I believe that Caleb can get to the point where he can operate it at the same way, if not better and crisper. And so, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things, again, that I take away from the game is none of the highlights are him running around. Yeah. Everything was in that rhythm and timing. And so I think that you're starting to see that incremental increase in him understanding how to run the certain play. Coach is calling this play. Why is coach calling this play? I'll give you the 2nd and 20 example that he throws the ball to Olamide Zaccheaus in zone at 8 yards deep, and Olamide catches it right when he's at the top of his break, left shoulder, turns and gets 8 more yards, and it's 3rd and 3. Caleb wouldn't have done that last year. And so why is coach calling the play and trusting the play call? I think that's a parallel that you see between the quarterback from Detroit and in Chicago.
Talking to Dan Orlovsky, it's Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. We have spent a lot of time on accuracy with Caleb Williams. We've been surprised at times with the lack of accuracy. Even this past week in a good game, he missed an easy screen throw. There was another pass that he could have made. I get it. You can't be perfect, Dan. You played the position. So take us inside that. Is that something that will improve, or do you believe that we'll always talk about Caleb, even when he does arrive, that, hey, he still has some accuracy issues?
No, I absolutely think that will and should improve. I think that my perspective is he's still more comfortable and more accurate throwing on the move than in the pocket. And I want to reiterate to people, that is because of the way he's played for 10 years. When you play as a dynamic and rocket-like athlete, you're always on the move, and you can make all these plays, and so you do. And I think he's got this comfort level outside the pocket, almost like a cockiness and a swagger of like this throw I can make. And I've been around quarterbacks like this, like Matthew Stafford was like this, right? Where like there wasn't a throw he didn't think he could make. And so I think the more comfort he gets in, the timing of it, the pace of his drop, that's a huge part of this is sometimes he's so fast and athletic, his drop will be too fast. And so then he gets to a point because his body's been trained for 12 years out of, and then if there's a little bit of like a ratchet it up, and that forces a miss at times instead of slowing down your feet a little bit, because then, you won't be as tense or tight, or you won't feel as sped up. And so, again, I just think these are things that are just going to take time. And do I think he'll get there? I do. I expect him to get there, candidly. But I think that's something that'll clean up as he gets more comfortable in this offense.
How do you think defenses will adjust to the better play you see from him? Do you think teams will sit more in zones, Dan, or do you think that they will be predominantly coming after him with man coverage and sending an extra pass rusher?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think, number one, they're just a difficult offense in 2025 to match up against, in my belief. I believe the offenses that are capable and willing to play with multiple tight ends and put the quarterback under center on early downs, they're a difficult matchup for teams. So that's step one. They're in a good place with that. I think step two is, you would love to play man coverage, but I think you got to have the people to match up against their guys, right? They got really talented perimeter players, size guys and thick guys that matter, again, with the tight end. So I think the thing that I'll be interested to see is when teams start to force him to be ultra patient and, again, I think they'll mitigate this by putting him under center and some of the play action stuff, but really forcing him to take the ball underneath, when you're down 5 in the fourth quarter and it's 2nd and 10 and you only have the back in the flat, will you take it? I think that's going to be that next point, it's easy to do it when you're up 14. I don't want to say easy. It's more comfortable to do it when you're up 14, right? But will he get that competitive urge to try and force balls? I just think that's how teams will start to play him, I think, as the season goes on. But I do think they're built to handle that and not put him in bad places.
Well, you just talked about their weapons. And Rome Odunze establishing himself as a top receiver in this league. He's not there yet, but he's on his way. You have DJ. You have Luther Burden, who they drafted very high in the second round, who scored the touchdown and is dynamic. You have Zacchaeus, who you mentioned. You have Loveland, who you drafted 10th overall, and you've got Cole Kmet there too. So this is, Dan, keep in mind, we in Chicago don't know what it's like to have weapons. So I don't know the answer to this question. Is it the more the merrier, or the Bears have duplicity at some areas here where they can maybe trade one of the guys and help, whether it be at left tackle or edge or in an area that they may need help in?
No, more the merrier. More the merrier, because this is one of the things that makes them, and obviously Detroit was a leader of this. It makes it really difficult to match up against them, because what happens if you want to put out those 3 receivers and just play one tight end? Well, what tight end is it? Is it Loveland? So then as a defense, you might sit there and go, that's almost like having 4 receivers on the field. So how do we defend that? Or is it Kmet? Well, then they could run the football a little bit because Cole's a capable blocker and a willing blocker. Well, what happens if they put those 2 tight ends on the field and it's Rome and DJ? Well, are they going to run the ball? Are we going to get play action? Do we want to play man? Do we match up? Do we want to play zone? But then we're vulnerable to run the football. And so then you get an opportunity to have a player like a Luther Burden who, he might be a guy that if a team's playing with a smaller nickel and his size can take advantage. The more the merrier. And, I think they've done a good job of highlighting players' strengths. But I believe in weapons, and I think the offensive line is playing better and improved. I want them both, and I think they're in a good place to have them.
Break down the NFC North for us if you can. This is a really good division.
Yeah, it's awesome. Obviously, Detroit week 1 looked like trash, and then the last 2 weeks you look like the Lions, and so it looks like it's Campbell's group, and that's going to be an awesome football team. I do think, defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard and the way that he handled Lamar this past week, like you got to sit back and go, they're going to be who Detroit has been. Green Bay is so talented. Very good offensive line. That defensive line is ridiculous, and it's one of the best units in football, that defensive line. Jordan Love, they got to get healthy. Jaden Reed's got to be healthy because he's such a big part of their football team. And then Minnesota, obviously question marks at quarterback no matter what, but they're as well coached offensively and defensively as anybody in the NFL. So it's one of those divisions where you're like, one of those teams isn't going to get in, and it's who can stay healthiest and who can play their best in December. But all 4 are playoff caliber teams.
Yeah. All right, if you owned a team and you needed a head coach, and I'm giving you 2 choices, you could either have Jim Harbaugh or Ben Johnson. Who are you taking?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to take Jim Harbaugh because we had them on Monday night last week, and I asked them, "Hey, Coach, who does Ladd McConkey remind you of?" And he gave me 2 names, and one is Marvin Harrison, and the other was Tom Waddle.
Wow, that's quite a compliment.
Waddle, did you know that?
I did not. I'm blushing, but
Yeah, that's a real story. So I'm going to go with Harbaugh because of that one.
Okay, I'll ride with you on that, Dan.
But Dan, we wanted Harbaugh badly, as you know. Obviously, that was Waddle's quarterback. Like you just told that story. We just, for all the people who didn't think that Harbaugh could do it again, he's won at every stop he's been in. He's just a natural-born winner. But do you believe, and I think you've always been a fan of Ben's, that he is already showing you that, yes, he is more than just a fancy offensive coordinator, that this guy has everything that it takes to be a great head coach?
Yeah, I mean, through 3 games, you're encouraged by it. Everyone overreacted to his comments in the media, I thought, last week, saying, like, hey, we don't practice the right way. I loved it. I thought it was like, hey, we don't practice at a championship level. That doesn't mean we can't or we won't. We're just not right now. And, it's 3 games in. How is he going to handle the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the good and the bad, remains to be seen. But, again, I think you got to be encouraged by the play and also just what feels to be a good environment.
All right, as we let you go, I mentioned as I brought you in all the different shows that you appear on. Who's the one guy that you hate, and not from a personal standpoint, a guy that you hate debating against because they go low or they'll just bring up some thoughts that aren't all there that's together? Who's the one guy that you dread debating against?
Yeah, I love debating anybody. I've always loved arguing. My wife doesn't, so it gives me my release of, wanting to argue. I mean this. I love doing it. The only thing I hate is when we get into arguments or debates, and the person's like, we'll see. I got to see it.
Yes.
And it's like, we're not. I'll tell you if they're good after they're really good. And so that's my pet peeve. Is like when everyone's like, you know what, this team, we'll see. I got to see it to believe it. Like, well, anybody believes it after they've seen it. And so that's my pet peeve in that regard. Okay,
great stuff. Hey, keep up the great work. Yep. We appreciate your breakdown of Caleb, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Rooting for you. Rooting for Chicago, man. Be well.